Right, guys, we're going to go in to announce the winner of our competition last week. It was my photograph of an elephant in Addo National Park. So I'm just going to check how many votes we've got. It's a close one. And the winner has won by 11 votes to 9 to 5. So very close this week. And the winner is Other Sam. Well done. Well done.
Wow.
Well, so over to you, Sam. How do you feel?
I mean, I just want to thank everybody who supported me over the last few years in my photography career. And
hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of GladiEditors. This week we're going to be editing one of my photos that I've taken of my friend DJ Liana. We chose an area in Chinatown that was really nice for the neons and the beautiful aesthetic. Also, because she's a DJ, we thought, we're going to go with this really nice, vibrant neon vibe. So we're going to jump into this edit and we're going to see who comes out on top this week. So I started my edit with doing some lens corrections just to get rid of all the vignetting around the edges. I then went in to change my exposure. And then I always do this to these kinds of images. I take the tint all the way down to a green level. It kind of gives it this really cool Blade Runner kind of look, and it gives it a little bit more of an edge. I then went down, I changed my contrast. I just brought it down just so it wasn't too harsh on the blacks. I know I've kind of always been known to go a little bit more contrasty, so I just wanted to bring it down. I then pulled down my highlights because I didn't want to show too much of the neon, so I wanted to kind of bring that down so it didn't affect too much of the image. I changed my whites so that it can obviously the glow of the neons kind of comes through. I know it's a little bit counterintuitive with with the neon and how I took down the highlights. But then I just upped some clarity, did a bit of my dehaze and my texture just to kind of bring back some of the nice details in the model. And then I just took down my vibrance, and then I just went back and forth just to kind of show just to kind of see in my eye how to do it. I then wanted to crop it. I just didn't like that little bit on the right hand side, so I just went in and I just changed it to a 16:10 crop. Still makes it nice and skinny, and it's just a really nice crop for this kind of image. I then went in, did my I went in to change my temperature, and I just made it a little bit warmer because it was looking a little bit too green. And then I just went in back into my highlights and my tone curve. This is actually a better way for me to kind of do my to bring out the highlights in the neon, because it only affects certain parts of it, so it makes a really nice natural glow as if that's what it was shot through. And then basically just coloring, so I just wanted to really make the reds stand out a little bit more in the blues. So I've just kind of gone in. When doing this, it's obviously going to affect the skin tone, so you have to be really careful with this kind of image because the skin tone gets so affected by the red, because red is such a dominant color. So just kind of keep changing through my aquas, my blues, my reds, my oranges, occasionally my yellows, just because it might just help pull the image together. And then just basically doing the same with the luminance. After this, I'll do with the hue as well, just because I like changing the colors a little bit more. So the blues get either a little bit more blue, or they go more towards a cyan, and gives that nice red-blue contrast element, which is always a really nice thing. The weird thing about this shot is that it is about the model in the photo, but I think the neon is such an interesting aspect of it that it then ends up becoming one of the most dominating features. So you got to find a way to kind of balance it. I mean, I shot it with a prism, so it's obviously gonna it flares out quite a lot and covers her. So yeah, I just changing my hues and then going in, I just wanted to zoomed in just to show that the shot is shot at 500 ISO, and so it has a little bit of grain. So I just wanted to bring up my luminance just to kind of make the skin a little bit smoother. And then I just went into my effects, pulled in a little bit of a vignette, just because I didn't want it to, I wanted to kind of still bring in the image just into a nice little oval, and then just kind of went back and forth and just had to look at my levels again. And then I got a selective brush, and I just upped my exposure and just kind of went over her torso and a little bit on her hand, just so where that light would normally be quite natural. And then just kind of like touching up a little bit on the face as well, just because that way it's just, I'm getting this like nice light from sort of like the side of the image, and then not affecting too much of the other side. So it's just kind of playing along with like the fact that she's already got the shadows, and then just kind of bringing in my own highlights as well. But yeah, that's pretty much my image. I think I went in and just like changed a few extra things, but that's it, straight up.
Cool. Just explain like the skin tone, what you do for that, because that's something I struggle with a lot, and yours looks like really natural. But still, like the neon still looks vibrant. So it's like that's a really hard thing to do. Have those two things work together, innit?
So with skin toning, I tend to just do it with, if you just play with like the red, green, and blue slide, like the how would you call it? The hue sliders.
HSL, yeah.
Yeah, HSL. Sorry, I'm so used to saying like RGB and stuff. Yeah, if you play with like your HSL sliders, you can just kind of tweak things very minorly and then not have anything to really worry about with the image. So it's not so much about like changing the color so drastically. It's just about making minor little tweaks so that you're still getting the most out of your image, but then also kind of showing off like a little bit extra as well. I don't know. It's kind of hard to. It's not really that hard to explain, but it is like it's kind of like one of those things that you just kind of have to kind of
have a feel for.
Like. Yeah, it's like it's just trial and error really, and then the hardest part is probably trying to make her stand out without making the neon like the primary focus.
That's what I think. Yeah, you don't. I don't like it how you've taken the color out of the neon. If I'm being honest, that's something that I'm not too keen on with this. But then you've just said it. You've just said that you made the model the primary focus because you're not being distracted. So yeah, like I'm being a bit hypocritical talking about color when you get to my edit a bit later. But what you've done with the neons, to me, that was such a vibrant, cool bit of the photo. It caught my eye. You've taken that away. But you've changed the focus onto the model, which is and should be the primary focus. So yeah, it's a different way of doing it. When I think myself, I'd have got a bit lost in just pumping the vibrancy of the neons and almost forgetting about the model. So it shows that where I've come from, as in not a model photographer, I didn't even really think of making the model more of a focus than the neon. I'd be going, oh look, them neons are great. Yeah, the model looks great, and I wouldn't have focused on the model more. So it's interesting coming from yourself as more of a model photographer, how to get her into focus more.
Well, it's funny actually. The shoot was like it was just a trial shoot for like a company I was doing, and then me and this she's a DJ, so I just thought, oh, maybe it would work really well. But then you said we've taken out the color. If you go to like my Instagram and things like that, where I have got other photos kind of in this style, you can see that literally like even it's just because I go into Photoshop on those ones, and it makes it much easier to pull out like the skin and like make the model still primary focus, but still keep everything else like super vibrant and like bright and saturated.
That's season 2 when we go into Photoshop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good. I like the photo though. I love the neons and how it's like almost double exposed. I really like that. It's good.
Yeah, like just like this style. Like I've got one lined up for beginning of July with this model's like good friend, and she wants to do something in a similar style. So I've got to like kind of bring up my A game because I haven't shot like this for maybe like a year and a half.
So we're jumping into my edit now. As usual, I just take a little minute or two just to like look at the picture and just feel where I'm going with it. And then I'll jump into the crop. I've reverted back to my trusty 10:8 crop, just because this image is quite, it's very like vertical and skinny, as Sam said. That's where I felt straight away. It felt like a 10:8 grid post for, a classic Instagram shot, model shot. And then with the crop tool, I just wanted to try and get the model, and was trying to like sort of line up her nose or her glasses with the right grid line, to the right vertical grid line. So I got that lined up and just felt like that made sense, and it feels like she's in the right place. And I went in quite a bit tighter than Sam did. So I think, yeah, I probably got rid of a lot of the neon that you'd have at the bottom of the image, but I felt like then it drew more attention to her face in the top right a little bit. So that was my thinking there. And then I instantly wanted to try and go for a similar style to Brandon Welful. I don't know if you've seen his stuff on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I've always thought that your pictures, Sam, are, you know, very reminiscent of his work, which I mean, and like, you know, that's like a huge compliment. So I pumped up the shadows straight away, because that's what I feel like Brandon Welful does. And then once I can see a lot more detail in the image, I just wanted to introduce another gradient, and then was trying to warm the temperature up with this top right gradient, so behind her head, because I felt like the light's warmer coming from that side of the picture. It's like off camera. I don't know what the light source was there, but it looks like it could have been like a tungsten light source. And then in the bottom left-hand side, and then brought in another gradient, but then darkened it a little bit, so it doesn't take away from the model. So it kind of like darkens the neon and the bottom left-hand side of the image, just so it doesn't really take your eye away from her, and then up the clarity a little bit, so then the neon pops a little bit, so it feels like it's a little bit more 3D. And then put in a radial filter just on her face, and I upped the feathering quite a lot, because I really just wanted to focus on her a little bit, but I didn't want it to look like there was a filter there at all. So having a lot of feathering kind of just hid that a little bit, made it a little bit more subtle. And then I played around with it for a little bit until I kind of figured out what I was trying to do, and just a little subtle punch is really what I was just trying to get, really. So I didn't want to bring the shadows up too much again, because I've already done that in the previous earlier in the image. And as you'll see in a moment, when you're in a few moments, lifting the shadows up so much, you can see now there's a lot of grain I've brought into the picture, which might have been there anyway, just because it was such a dark, you know, place to shoot with the neon. So then when I up luminance, I always adjust the sharpening before, so that's what I do there. And then I'll adjust the luminance, just because I feel like the two in tandem work really nicely, because sometimes if you don't do that, the luminance can make the image look blurrier. I don't know if you found that. But now I felt like that looked a lot cleaner. And really I could have stopped there, but I carried on just for a little bit, because I just feel like, I don't know, there was a bit more, I wanted to get into the image a bit more. So I just applying a little bit of a vignette to just hone the eye a bit more again. And then that obviously then made it a little bit darker around the edges, and I didn't want to detract from the neon sign. So then just adding this gradient now is doing what Sam was doing with the brush, but I'm doing it with a gradient, basically, just letting the light that's falling on her. I just wanted to like enhance that a little bit, because she seemed a bit dark in my opinion. And then this is the worst part of the edit, where I just totally destroy the picture. So if you want a lesson now on how not to use the tone curve, everybody, this is how. Basically, I've got these presets I've installed, which I didn't use, obviously. But one of the presets, they're by Peter McKinnon, by the way. So shout out there.
Oh,
and one of his shock horror. But one of his presets that I really like, I can't remember the name of it, but the tone curves sort of shaped like this. But then as I tried to replicate just the shape of the tone curve without thinking about actually what it was doing to the picture, I just started to slowly destroy the image. So as you can see, I'm trying to recreate the shape of the tone curve, and then I'm just ruining the picture, basically. So I tried to fix it first of all with the exposure, see if that would work, but really it's just way too contrasty now. So undo, Control Z a few times. What I did mean to do though was just lift the shadows even more a little bit. So then I'll go back quite a lot further and start again, but I still keep the blacks lifted quite a lot, as you can see, just because that's again something I see Brandon Welful does a lot on his pictures, especially with like models. I don't know why he does it. I never seen him explain it, but I figure it's something to do with the skin tone. And then because now it seems a little bit too hazy, I just try and give it a little bit more of a punch, adjusting the exposure and contrast. And I think I'm almost there. I'll just double check. And now it was really a case of just fine tuning, because there's something about it now, especially looking back at it. It's very vibrant, and I didn't actually touch the vibrance or saturation. I wanted to try and keep that to bring out the neon. Like Ryan was saying, I didn't really think about the consequences that I'd have on the model. But overall, I felt like I needed to keep that kind of very high key, contrasty style. So I think that's why I did that. And that's what I was basically left with. Yeah, and I'm pretty happy with it, actually. Considering where I was about halfway through, or 3/4 of the way through the edit, I thought I'd completely destroyed it. But I think I brought it back in the end, just about. So, yeah.
I think the 10:8 crop has worked really well for you this week. I don't like that crop myself, but when you zoomed in on it and you cut a bit of the neon out at the bottom, but I think you really kind of focused in on the model, and you've got the neon framing it to the left-hand side, but that crop works really well. It's good.
For me, right? So when I was looking at this image, like I have never really done this one too close. I've never done this one at a tighter crop, mainly because of that little bit of grain, which actually kind of does work. I mean, because it's got kind of a bit more of like a retro feel to the image anyway, with the neon and like the way the model's posed and with the glasses. So actually, and having a bit of grain doesn't matter, because I could then just be like, oh yeah, no, I shot it like on digital and then just pretended like it was film. Like, I could always pass it off as that style.
Yeah.
So it actually does work, and maybe I will try and do something with this series at like a tighter crop, and maybe do more like a film series. The only thing I don't like is obviously like where I took away some of the neon, like the light from it, like the highlights, you've kind of blasted them out. That's more preference over anything else.
Yeah.
And obviously this is my pitch, so to me this is like but no, like I like the contrast though. The colors are kind of like how I did them when I shot it originally, and then over time I just realized I wanted to go with like a bit more of like a 70s 80s sci-fi vibe.
I love what you said about Blade Runner. Like, yours did have that kind of Ridley Scott feel to it. And that's why I asked about skin tone as well, because I feel like mine, she's obviously catching a lot of the different colours there. Maybe if I was to had more time or was to do it again, I'd take the oranges a little bit out, or not use on that gradient on the top right. I put the temperature to tungsten, so that's maybe what's given it that kind of orange cast to it.
Good thing to keep in mind is when you're doing it, when shooting with color, is that red is by far the hardest color to shoot with, because it takes up and it interferes with skin tone. It interferes. That's why blue is always quite easy to work with, because it's. Yeah. But then if you do blue, then you can do red, because you can kind of do that like good versus evil kind of vibe, and like you see it a lot, blue and orange. Pink,
well, that's why they have green screens, isn't it? Because it doesn't interfere with skin tone.
And blue screen as well.
Yeah.
But again, there's their own issues there. But we're not a film channel guy. We don't need to talk about.
Not stuff yet. Anyway. Who knows?
No, this is. No.
Cool. So that was basically it. Yeah.
Right, so we're going to get into my edit of your picture, Sam. First of all, I really liked it, but what I thought straight away was to go black and white. I don't know why, because I love the vibrancy of the colours, but I just thought with all the lines on it and everything, black and white and quite contrasty would work well. So as you can see, I've done some minor tweaks with the contrast, the highlights up to them, so the neon lights now glow a little bit, so you still get that glow. I've then edited just the side with a brush tool of the model, because I wanted her to be seen as well, because when it went black and white, it seemed to be too dark for her. So gently, I've just gone with the brush tool down her body and brought the exposure up. So I've tried to make her quite visible in all the lines, in all the edit. I've then, played around with that a little bit. Felt like the grain was quite high on that, but I'll work on that a little bit later. Over to my crop now. So I haven't done a set crop on it, but I thought I'm going to try having her quite tight in the later third on the right-hand side and cropping quite tight. So similar to yours, Sam, I think it's almost a 10x8 crop, but it's a little bit skinnier, I think, than the 10x8. And then a little bit of what you did last week, Sam, is start playing with the individual colours in the black and white. I had a go at it, but for me, it didn't go very well. It started like the colours were just changing a lot, and I didn't feel like it needed it. I then sharpened it a bit. I've then added a little bit of vignette, but again, I feel like I've lost the side of her face on my edit. See, like just the left-hand side is going a bit too dark, which I'll come back to in a little bit. I've added some gradients in. Again, doing my own vignette now, making sure it's not too overpowering, but I wanted it to be black and then coming in, as in the neon lights are coming in. And then, you can see I zoom in here. I'm not happy with the darkness on the side of her face. I take this little spot off, this little freckle. I don't know why, but it was bugging me. So I used the spot tool and got rid of it. Again, I wanted the skin tone to be really crisp and clear. And then I think I go back into that just to try and get the skin tone smoother, which I think I need to take a note out of your book, Sam. You've got that skin tone spot on. And I thought that was really good. So now, again, I go back onto the side of her face there and just try and bring that exposure up so you can see her. But I do start losing a little bit of like clarity in her face. It gets a bit too much with the texture. You can see the grain in it a little bit, which is something, if I was going to spend a bit longer, I'd try and smooth out all that grain to make it look a bit better. But overall, it was quite a quick edit for me. I think once I got black and white, I didn't have to worry too much about the colours. It was just the grain and how I've worked with the grain with the black and white. And my views on film and film cameras. If you don't, check out our Instagram and you'll understand why. So again, I really liked it in black and white. I thought it looked really good. And there's my final image. So quite moody, quite punchy. I'm quite happy. So what do you guys think?
I like what you've done. As soon as you've just put it now, enlarged it with like the black border, it completely makes sense to me, especially how you've like put your own vignette in there to make the edges black. For some reason, when viewing it in Lightroom with like the Lightroom application around it, it felt out of place. But once you've sat it in this black wrap like surrounding, it instantly feels like real. What's the word? Noir. Has like that noir feel to it. So that makes sense, especially because she's like got this sassy pose going. So she's kind of like this femme fatale character in the street, in like sort of like, I don't know. You can imagine her like in the high street at night in these neon signs. So I think for that reason, it fits the mood of the picture definitely.
Cool. Go on, Sam.
I will eat my words because I fucking love it.
Nice.
I can actually tell you, like when you put it into black and white, I was like, no. But then as soon as you brought up, like, again, I've never really taken it any farther than just like putting it into black and white and then maybe just boosting a couple of things. But I love and I'm gonna agree with Sam here, like the neo noir femme fatale look is like solid. It reminds me of something like not so much more like Sin City, that kind of vibe, but with like a bit of like a techno kind of revolutionized area to it. So for me, like this is like, and I love the crop. Like as soon as you did the crop, I was like, no, done. I love it. Everything about it. Like the faces maybe got like you said, like, you would change a few things. The face might be a little bit too bright. Maybe just like her whole face is a little bit too bright. And obviously she's got this shadow like on a bit here, just where like I think you haven't, like, you obviously in Lightroom you're very limited with the tools that you can blend those sets with in a minimum amount of time. So I love it, and I love how like it's the shadow bringing it in and then the light comes through. Like I'm definitely gonna go back and look at this edit and try and do like my own thing to it. But this is the only thing, like I know most people don't like it, and it's like a selective black and white where you've got a little bit of color, a little bit of red somewhere would give it that ultimate Sin City vibe. And
I did look at it. I looked at it and red was the color I chose, but because it was red, what I'd have to do is split it from her skin tone to the neons. So what I wanted to do is keep the red in the neons and then keep everything else black and white. But I was getting far too much reflection and redness in her skin tones, which was a shame. So maybe it's something I could improve or you could work on is keep her in black and white, but then keep the bright red neon lines coming through, which I think would be really good. Like you said, Sin City vibes could look really cool. But no, I'm very happy with it in black and white.
Yeah, no, like ultimate, like love it. Just like again, just a bit too bright on the face, but everything else is like solid. The crop, the black and white, everything. I love it. I am gonna go in straight after we finish this video, and I'm gonna go in and see what I can do with a black and white now. And I'm gonna, I want to do like a proper film look now, because like of what Sam said with like the whole, oh, it's, you know, you can kind of fit with a film vibe, and then what you've done here, I'm just like, I might even have to start off with your crop as well. I'm gonna be
quite often I choose the crop and it's a set crop, but this one I thought it just suits being free to crop it wherever I want on the neons, and I wanted that kind of solid black border almost, where like obviously now you see it big against the black background. You can't see where the photo starts or ends. I'd even see where her hand is, where it's up here. I'd even start blending that into it a little bit.
Tell you what I would do so obviously we're talking about doing like a bit of red. Instead of trying to complicate everything and trying to bring it like into like all of the different like neon tubes, you could literally, like, I would just take it into Photoshop and then just like paint something massively in red. Yeah. Like just do like a massive paintbrush in like an effect and then just blend it. Yeah. And then just see and just paint out where you don't want it. Like that's, I think that would be like so dope.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think if I do another shoot like this, I'm definitely gonna see if I can get like a samurai sword.
That would be cool.
With yours, Sam, I really like the brightness for it, and I love like the contrast and everything like that. It's just more like, for me, it's just the brightness. It's just going too far with like the highlight, like almost like the exposure, or like just so much emphasis on the glow of the image. So it kind of gets a bit blown out, is probably the best way to say it. And then Ryan, just everything like about it is what I love about Ryan's, is because not only is the crop different, it's also made me think about the black and white kind of idea of that image, because I've always looked at that image and always thought, or that series of images, and kind of thought, oh my god, black and white would look so good, but but you lose the color, and then without the color you almost feel like, oh no, what am I gonna lose here? And then, but that really showed me that I can actually do it and still retain all that. Like I don't need the color to make it look vibrant and bright, I just need like that contrast.
Yeah, definitely. I think with all three of them on the screen, you can see that contrast in all of them. It looks good.
Yeah, and contrast itself definitely lends to a better black and white image. So that, you know, at first you said you don't know why, but that's probably what maybe like made you decide black and white, just because when people see that contrast, it helps that kind of neo-noir feel, I think. Probably. It completely makes sense now. Like I didn't think of black and white at all at first, but it does make sense. Definitely. In fact,
it's a very bold direction to take. Like very like in it, just with this style of image. a little clap. Hey guys, so it's over to you, the viewer, to vote on your favorite image. We'll be putting it up on our Facebook page and our Instagram account as well. So be sure to follow and subscribe to GladiEditors. We're going to be here every week on YouTube, so stay tuned.